Hey guys, welcome to J Hauser Writes. Thank you for joining me for another video. I'm gonna beg and plead shamelessly to subscribe and also check out the descriptions if you want to see my website newsletter, because this is a really new channel and I would love to get more conversation out there with writers and readers. That's what this is about. I am aiming towards being a multi-genre hybrid author. Today I want to talk about depression and writing, or at least my experience, and take that as you may. This is kind of breaking off of the conversation in the last video I just filmed about ADHD and writing, and kind of started thinking about filming this because of an experience of someone who has ADHD in the traditional publishing world, and things got pretty sticky because of asking for accommodation. And you can watch that video because I have also been diagnosed with ADHD, but my depression is definitely a different diagnosis. So you know what, let's just dig right in. My view on depression, first of all, is that there are definitely different kinds of depression, and how they're treated, how they're handled, where they even come from are very different things. You know, there is kind of a depression dips in our lives that are natural. I'm going through a very stressful time right now. I just moved. Pretty sure I gave myself a concussion because I was super smart and let a heavy piece of wood just smack me in the head, and I've been getting constant headaches. And I'm forced to go back to work at my full-time job earlier than I wanted, and I'm super stressed about changes that have happened, you know, just like, and sometimes I just shut down, right? But that's situational. There's depression, which I read an article that I really agree with, that there are, you know, so many kinds of depression, and the vast majority of them are actually trauma-based. And I definitely know that. I could list my traumas, I'm not going to, but you know, my life has not been perfect, and I've always been a sensitive person, so I take things different than some others. You know, some say grow a thick skin, and some of us say I'm trying to survive. So don't judge me. So I have been diagnosed with double depression, essentially. Honestly, in some ways it's kind of triple depression. So there's dysthymia, which is like a constant low-grade depression, and then there's also seasonal depression, so seasonal affective disorder, which I realize every year, like, I forget that it's going to happen. And this happened during NaNoWriMo this last year, and I wondered, like, why do we challenge ourselves in November when it's really fall? And that's where I just shut down, and I am just in a funk, and I can't figure it out. And then I'm like, oh yeah, there's not much sunlight outside. That is why I'm not functioning well. That really made me struggle through that challenge. So I don't know if I'm going to do NaNoWriMo again during November. I don't know, we'll see. The other thing that I have a diagnosis with that I haven't really talked about because I'm still working on medication with my doctor is PMDD. So that's, I don't remember the exact words. It's hormonal based. So cyclically, every month for a woman, it's just literally my body being like, do we want to be around? And you're like, why? I know, like, you can sit in and know that things will get better. It's not bad as it seems. It's just the chemicals. And I can logically and logistically know this, but still question whether my existence is worth it. So luckily, medication I've been on for that, once we finally appropriately diagnosed it, has helped immensely. That's my diagnosis. Did you want to know? I don't know. Doesn't matter. But just so you can know from my perspective, there are different kinds of depression, and let's go into how it affects me as a writer. I would say there's a major pro and a major con. So the major pro is that I get to put that into characters. There can be a lot of catharsis there. You know, the books that I've written, there are people, and this draws from both trauma and depression. I do have a scene in a book where a girl spirals into self-harm, and I do see people that have gone through struggles like me or similar situations, and I can pull from those raw emotions and put them into a book in a genuine manner. And I have scenes where I've written them, and I know in my heart that I don't care at all if someone were to criticize that and say, oh, that's not authentic. It is. I know, because I've been there. It may not be authentic for everyone, but it can be authentic for this character because I know that character. I relate to that character. Now you can say, oh, that's a self-insert. And in a way, authors do self-inserts. And I look at my main characters in an entire series, and I think each one has a little bit of me. So it's not like this one character is me, but there are aspects for sure in all of them. And that's how I can relate to them, and that's how I can express the journey that they're going on. And for being a very character-driven kind of story, I think that's great. I'm able to pull from those experiences, and I'm better able to help the reader hopefully experience and understand the same thing. Now the negative is, I mean, depression can sometimes take you out. You're laying in bed because you don't have the wherewithal to adult, to move on, to do things. And that's what happened with NaNoWriMo. I still finished my 50K in 10 days. I mean, you have 30 days. I did it in 10 days, but those 10 days were like a chunk here and then a chunk here, because this time was seasonal affective disorder of me being meh. That's when you Netflix binge. You either Netflix binge or you write like a crazy person, or at least that's me. And maybe that's going back to the ADHD a little bit too, but it can take me out, and it can be hard to even respond to an email. And I have had a little bit of that lately where I've struggled. You know, I put out emails to editors to see what kind of professionals I want to help polish my book, and then I can't respond. And it's not laziness, it's a real thing. And I think you have to find that balance. Every person has to find that balance of motivating themselves, holding themselves accountable, pushing through the hard times, but also learning to be patient with yourself and forgive yourself. You know, I guess with the depression, that also goes into how you handle criticism, because if you're writing and you're going to put that out there, there will be criticism, and some days are better than others. I've had some days where I get that email from a critique partner or a beta reader that I know is particularly harsh and blunt with their feedback, and I just see that email sitting on my phone, and I just, like, my stomach is in knots, and I just dread it. And I know I'm not going to take it well. And especially as a new writer, that was particularly hard. I think I am getting better at taking criticism in general, and also realizing how much weight someone's criticism has. It's learning yourself, it's learning about the process and the people that are giving you criticism, and learning how to weigh it, and also giving yourself time. Sometimes, whether or not I'm in that funk, that not great space to read that feedback, I'm not good at just being like, oh, I'll read it tomorrow. No, I need to know right now whether or not I'm in a good headspace. I need to read it right now. So I will read it, and then, you know, it might take a day or two for my spirits to lift up. And I know that has a lot to do with me and just needing external validation. How much of that is just like trauma needing therapy and depression, you know, it's all intermingled. But it is hard sometimes more than others, to hear that you're not doing something great. And you have to prepare yourself and learn how to deal with it in your own way. Because now I'm getting to that fear of, I've been through so many edits on this book and so many readers and rereads, and I feel like it's in a good spot. But now I'm looking at paying a lot of money to actually get professional views, because I'm just not sure, you know, maybe these people weren't critical enough, and I don't want it to hit the internet and then see, you know, 2 stars because it's a piece of crap. And at what point am I going to be okay with that? And how hard am I going to take the reviews? I have a feeling that, again, I'm not going to be able to not look, at least for a while, and that I will also take it hard. So I'll have to see. I can see myself being curious enough shortly after release to read my reviews, but then maybe, especially if it hits me hard, the negative stuff, having someone else look for me and kind of compile a list, because even though reviews are for readers to know if they want to read the book, I still believe it's for an author, especially for a newer author, because just like beta readers are only a sample size, and so maybe I didn't get enough feedback from, you know, half a dozen readers. So when it's open to a larger audience, I have more people saying like, hey, this was a weak part. So that's something that I can work on for, you know, a second edition or moving on with future books. So I do still think that reviews are for authors. They can just be kind of painful for authors, especially if you struggle with something like depression. So find what works for you. Be forgiving with yourself, but also try to be strong. Try to push forward, and it'll work out. Try to look at that positive, that you can put in something very real, because books are about overcoming challenges. No one wants a book that is all happy all the time. Like, I don't know, try to think of a single book that's that way. in romance, the couple's facing struggles that pull them apart and bring them together. Like literally, if you just meet someone and you tell a whole story about like perfect relationship, no one wants to read that. There's got to be something to overcome. Harry Potter has things to overcome. Percy Jackson has things to overcome. In Mistborn, every book, it's about overcoming struggle. And you can make that struggle visceral and real to someone in a way that other authors might make it bland, might make it too neutered. I don't know the right word, because they haven't faced the same kind of struggle you have that maybe you can put into it. Anyway, I am particularly rambly today, and I am sorry about that. But thank you for joining me. I'd love to hear your comments if you're a writer, if you struggle with depression, or whatever you want, as long as it's nice. And I hope that you have a great day. Thank you for joining me. Consider subscribing, checking out my newsletter, going and checking out things about my books that are in the process. And yeah, we'll see you next time. Have a great day, guys.